Okay, so hello everyone. So I will talk now about the wave modeling in extreme conditions. So the presentation will follow this plan. So I will talk about first the context with the offshore renewable energy needs, then a word on the spectral wave models in storm conditions. Then I will continue with the first result we obtained in this project with the benchmark between the existing parameterization that has been published by Rougeau et al. In 2020. Then I will talk about a breaking model for dominant waves that have been also developed during the project and have been published by Stringari et al. In 2010 also. And then more recent work with the development of the new parameterization based on the Gaussian field theory and its implementation in the WaveWatch3 model. And then I will finish with the conclusion perspective. So what are the offshore renewable needs? So for dimensioning, they need first long time series to make estimation of extreme return level reliables. So usually observed time series are too short to derive reliable statistics. So usually we use spectral wave models that can produce a very long time series, 25 years or maybe more. But what we also need is to have accurate extreme conditions. And if spectral models usually provide very good estimation of the significant wave heights in general, they most of the time fails to estimate the highest events. So you have an illustration on the figure on the right here, where you have the observation in red and the model results in blue. And we have a model underestimation by about 25%. With observation goes up to 12 meters or maybe a bit more. And the model show us a significant wave height to about 9 meters. So a word on the spectral wave models. So the spectral wave models that are also called the phase average model does not resolve the free surface elevation, but estimates the directional wave spectrum. So as Jeff already says, it is the distribution of the wave energy, usually take at the variance, over the frequencies or the wave numbers and the directions. So how looks a wave spectra? You have an illustration on the left side. So here is the energy of the spectrum that is distributed over the frequencies that you can see here and the direction over there. And from this spectra, we can add some integrated parameters as the significant wave heights that we can derive from this spectrum. And you have here a map of the significant wave height, for example. So how works these spectral wave models? So they resolve an equation that is named the wave energy balance equation or action equation. So this is this equation. So basically, the Lagrangian derivative of the spectral density is the sum of many source terms. So I put some of them here. So in deep water, for the wave growing, there is three main source terms that are the wind input. This is the energy transfer from the wind to the waves. The four wave nonlinear interactions. So this is nonlinear interactions that interacts between waves and redistributes the energy in the spectrum. Sorry. And another very important parameter is the energy dissipation to the ocean that is linked to the breaking waves. So when the wave breaks, then transfer energy from the wave to the ocean, turbulence mainly. And for example, I add some other possibly source terms, such as the bottom friction dissipation, but we can have in this equation many other source terms depending on our application. So in the first part of the project, we did a benchmark of the existing parameterization. So for the case study, we used the 2013-14 stormy winters with 13 storms analyzed during these winters. So you can see the selected storms here. The model used was the WaveWatch3 model in its version 5.16. And two parameterization have been tested. So the first one from Arduin et al. 2010, the second one from Filippo and Arduin 2012. So these are the two main widely used parameterization now. And also we tested the model with two forcing wind fields. The first one is a blending satellite winds. So it's a wind field obtained by merging all satellite observation available. And another that is the ERA5 reanalysis, that is a result of a model that also assimilates satellite observations. And here is the part of the, this is the location of our studies. So we look at these storms on the west part of France. So the results to be retained from this analysis, the best choice for simulating the storm's evolution is the T500 parameterization with ERA5 forcing wind. So here on the right side, you can see a comparison between the model results here and the observation here. So as we can see, all the parameterization are quite good for low HS, for low significant wave heights, but differs quite a lot on the high part here. So what are the main results? So first, the blended satellite winds provide more intense wind during storms than the ERA5 reanalysis. And also the Filippo and Arduin parameterization show a faster wave growth under winds. So if we combine them, we can see that the best choice is shown here. But so with the Filippo and Arduin parameterization with ECMWF winds, so with ERA5 winds. And but we also show that the significant wave height, the higher significant wave height here, are systematically underestimated. So of course we can use the higher wind from the blended satellite winds to correct here the highest HS, but we create a large error here for medium wind speed, medium HS. And this is worst on the coastal buoy location. The model underestimates more at a coastal buoy location because it was shown that in shallow water, the results are very, very sensitive to the accuracy of the bathymetry, the current, the water elevation, and also the seabed roughness. So there is many other source terms that are needed to be very precise in coastal water to provide good results. So what we can get from that, the recent physical parameterizations, so the wind input and the braking dissipation have been proposed in the literature. The results show very good performances in terms of significant wave heights, but with underestimation of extreme. So this is what I just said. Then, and if we look into the model and if we look into the source terms, we can see that the computed source terms are very different between the parameterization. But the resulting spectra, which is the results of the integration of all the source terms, are quite similar. So how to evaluate this source term and how to evaluate this parameterization? But there is one of the source terms, the braking dissipation source terms, that we can link to the breaking statistics that we are able to observe. So I just mentioned that a previous study that had been done in 2013 showed that the parameterization, the two parameterizations that have been investigated, fail in providing good statistics, or at least statistics in line with the observation. So just a word on the observable breaking statistics. There is two main statistics, breaking statistics. So the first one is the breaking probability that we will name QBK. This is just the total number, the number of breaking waves over the total number of waves. So this is punctual observation. You are in you are at one location. You count the number of waves and you count the number of breaking waves that go through this location, and you can obtain a breaking probability. But now this is quite complicated because there is no many breaking. So if we look at the breaking only at one point, you don't catch a lot of breaking waves. Nowadays, there is other observations that are more convenient, and this is named the breaking crest length density. It was defined by Phillips with this equation. So the integration of the breaking length density between two speeds correspond to the density of breaking crest fronts with speed between these two speeds. So how we can look that on field? So here you have an example of breaking waves. It's quite simple. We can get from this observation, from video observation, the speed of the breaking fronts and the length of the breaking front. So we can observe this parameter. So we developed in the project parameterization first for dominant wave breaking. So that have been published by Stringari et al. In 2020. And it starts from a common breaking criterion, that is when the speed of the fluid at the crest exceeds the crest speed itself, the wave will overturn and will break. So our hypothesis is that exists a similar breaking criterion that is equivalent, that is usable for equivalent linear waves. So here you have a real nonlinear waves, and if we linearize the waves, we expect that there is a breaking criterion here between the speeds of the crest fluid particles and the crest speed itself. And when this criterion is reached, the wave is breaking. So why we go to linear world? It's very convenient to use linear waves because we fall in the Gaussian field theory, and we can have a theoretical distribution of this parameter. So you can see here the distribution between the speeds of the particle fluid at the crest, and here the speed of the crest itself. And so if we had here our breaking criteria, we can integrate on the part where the breaking criteria is reached to obtain a breaking probability that you can see here. And here you have the evolution of the breaking probability with the parameter, with the breaking criteria. So what Stringari et al. Did, they applied the model for dominant wave scale. So they select only the part of the spectrum around the peak of the spectrum, so a dominant wave scale. And they propose two values for the breaking criterion. The first one is a theoretical value that has been obtained with regular waves. So that is a 0.38. But then they fit another value on the observe the breaking statistic of the dominant waves, and they proposed another breaking criteria that is 0.24. So what we then did to export this dominant wave breaking model to all scale is to keep the Gaussian-based approach developed by Stringari et al. And extend this approach to all wave scale with a sliding filtering window applied on the full spectrum. We also implemented long wave modulation to modulate the breaking of the short waves. Then we did some comparison with observations. I will show you some just after that. And finally, we adjust a new value for our breaking criterion for the complete breaking model. So here are some comparison to the observation. So the observation are in black dots. So here you have the wave spectrum, and here you have the breaking crestless density, the observed breaking crestless densities. So here you have the results of our models in red. Here you have a parameterization from Sutherland and Melville in 2013. And what we can see is that differs a lot for large, high speed waves and for low speed waves. So for low speed waves, we can have an explanation for that. It's just that this observation has been obtained using visible imagery. So as you can see here, the visible imagery is easily detect the large wave breaking because they produce bubbles. And so you have a white part on the image that we can detect easily. But for small breakers, like maybe this one, the video imagery is not really able to catch these breaking waves. So here we add also this parameterization, the parameterization by Sutherland and Melville. And to obtain their parameterization, they use also infrared imagery, as you can see here. And it shows that if we can catch these small breaking events with the IR imagery, we can see that this part is not really true, but the breaking continue to increase for smaller waves. So here are some other observations with the Mironov dataset that has been published in 2008. We have again other datasets. And we have here another comparison to another dataset from Thomson in 2012. And here there is another questioning about this part of the observation because they used different methods to observe the breaking wave, a spectral method. So they obtain some breaking waves that go very, very fast, but we are not very sure that this wave can exist. We have, for example, here, these waves are going 2 times faster than the peak waves. So we are not really sure that these breaking waves really exist. So other comparison to Thomson datasets, for example. So it works not so bad. The comparison with the observation are not really perfect for sure, but we don't have very good observation with long waves. We need some more observation with longer waves to check our parameterization. And the last part of this work was to implement this parameterization in the WaveWatch 3 spectral wave model. That is an ongoing work, not finished yet. And we can just show you the breaking crest length density that we obtain with the model. And also we started by mixing the new dissipation term with the wind input from another parameterization. We started to parameterize the new, to tune the new models. And this is an ongoing work. I will not talk more about that now. So my conclusion, about the wave breaking parameterization. So we have extended the first work of Stringari et al. To all scales. We can see that small scales breaking is driven by a long wave modulation. The resulting breaking statistics are in line with the observation, and for the implementation in the wave-3 models, the models now produce breaking statistics from our parameterization, and we are working to create a dissipation source term from our breaking statistics. For the next steps, we have to confirm the parameterization capabilities with a new observation of breaking with larger waves. And for the implementation in the wave-3 model, we still have to calibrate the new dissipation function and validate the results, test the parameterization in storm condition, prepare the code to be released in the next public version, and provide wave incasts, including breaking statistics to be used by the offshore renewable energy sectors. And also a short-term perspective is to couple our parameterization with an atmospheric model to take into account for the sea spray released by breaking waves in the atmospheric boundary layer. Thank you.